It wasn't just a parachute drop into the dark. It was a death warrant signed in perfume and gunpowder. How did a 23-year-old shop girl from Brixton, a young mother still clutching the scent of her baby's skin, become the most lethal ghost in the British arsenal? Why did the British Empire, with its vast intelligence networks and iron-jawed generals, gamble the fate of the French resistance on a woman they privately dismissed as influenceable? But the official records are a shroud. The history books remember the medals, but they forget the sound of the laughter that once echoed through the department store aisles of Le Bon Marché. Laughter that would soon be choked by the smoke of a concentration camp. They saw a vivacious sprite when they needed a weapon, but they missed the cold, tempered steel beneath the silk. Violette Szabo was an outsider twice over a woman in a man's war, and a civilian fed into a military machine that viewed her as an expendable asset. They underestimated her spirit, right up until the moment it became the only thing standing between the Gestapo and the liberation of France. Why did the most powerful intelligence system in the world ignore the one physical flaw that would ultimately lead her to the gallows? The answer wasn't in the classified vaults, but in the dust of time. London, 1940. The city is a bruised landscape of sirens and shattered glass. In the aisles of Le Bon Marché, the war feels like a distant thunder, until it doesn't. Violette Bushel is a whirlwind. To the world, she is a shop girl. To her brothers and male cousins, she is the tomboy who can outshoot her father on the range and outcycle the boys across the South London hills. She is a creature of movement, of gymnastics and ice skating, a vivacious spirit that the gray reality of the Blitz cannot dampen. Then comes the parade. The Bastille Day celebration of 1940 is a chaotic explosion of French pride in the heart of London. Violette's mother, Reine, sends her daughter on a simple mission: find a homesick French soldier and bring him home for dinner. She finds Etienne Szabo. He is a captain in the French Foreign Legion, a man who carries the scent of North African sand and the weight of a country in exile. Their romance is a fever dream, a whirlwind of 5 weeks that ends in a wedding and a hurried goodbye. Etienne is shipped back to the front, leaving Violette with a wedding ring and a heavy silence. The system of war is a hungry beast. It takes Etienne at the Battle of Bir Hakeim before he can ever hold his child. It leaves Violette in a flat in Notting Hill, staring at a telegram that turns her world to ash. But while the establishment mourns through paperwork, Violette mourns through action. The British Special Operations Executive F Section is looking for invisibles. They don't want traditional soldiers. They want people who can disappear into a crowd of shoppers or blend into the rustic scenery of the French countryside. They need the bilingual, the brave, and the vengeful. They find Violette. The process begins with a vague letter about war work. The interview takes place under a mundane alias, a man named Mr. Potter. In reality, he is Selwyn Jepson, the SOE's lead recruiter. He looks at this young mother and sees a linguistic asset. He sees a woman who can move through the shadows of Paris without an accent. But there is a friction here, a gap between the girl and the machine. While the high-ranking strategists in London argue over maps and troop movements, Violette is sent to the special training schools. At Winterfold House, the shop girl begins to vanish, She is taught the cryptic arts of fieldcraft, how to navigate by the stars and how to kill with a piece of wire. In the remote Scottish Highlands, she masters the art of demolition. To the instructors, it is a technical curriculum. To Violette, it is visceral. The mechanism of sabotage is simple but deadly. It's like a clogged artery. You don't need to destroy the whole body. You just need to place a few ounces of plastic explosive on the precise pressure point of a railway line or a transformer. The input is a timed fuse. The output is a paralyzed Nazi supply chain. But even here, the establishment mocks her. Her instructors write reports filled with a crystallized arrogance. They claim she lacks finesse. They worry she is too willing to please, doubting her ability to stand alone when the laughter stops. One commander looks at her and scoffs. She's a gymnast, not a ghost. She'll trip over her own vivacity. They had fatally underestimated their student. It wasn't surrender they were seeing. It was the quiet focus of a hunter who had already lost everything she loved. The training culminates in the art of the parachute. At Ringway Airport, Violette prepares to leap into the dark. But the machine betrays her. A sudden shift in the air, a hard landing on cold tarmac, and her ankle screams. It is a severe sprain, a mechanical failure of the human frame at the worst possible moment. The experts suggest she stay behind. They see the injury as a reason to scrub her from the mission. But while the system sees a medical liability, Violette sees a countdown. She binds the joint in silence, masking the pain with a smile that never reaches her eyes. She is already in the dark, holding the silence that would eventually save and break her. Before she leaves, she meets Leo Marx, the SOE's brilliant, eccentric cryptographer. He watches her struggle to memorize a complex nursery rhyme used for encryption. To the military mind, the code is a manual. To Marx, it is a poem. He gives her a few lines of his own composition. The life that I have is all that I have, and the life that I have is yours. It is her cognitive bridge. Because she is a woman of deep, tragic love, the code finally makes sense. While the experts saw a sequence of letters, Violette saw a promise to Etienne. On the night of April 5th, 1944, a Lysander aircraft idles on a hidden runway in Bedfordshire. Violette assumes the identity of Corinne Rain-Leroy, a commercial secretary. The system had given her a fake name, a fake history, and a sprained ankle. But as she stepped into the belly of the plane, she carried something they couldn't regulate, a mother's fury and a widow's resolve. She was no longer a shop girl. She was a ghost, and the machine was finally letting her loose. Now the moon is a pale sliver over the vineyards of the Loire Valley. April 1944. The Westland Lysander touches down with a soft, mechanical sigh, its tires biting into the damp earth of a secret meadow. Violette steps out into the biting chill of occupied France. To the world, she is Corinne Rain-Leroy, a simple commercial secretary. To the SOE, she is codename Louise. But the system she was sent to support is already dead. The salesman circuit, once a network of over 100 agents, has been unzipped by the Gestapo. The leadership is gone, the safe houses are compromised, and the shadows are full of teeth. While the high-ranking officers in London wait for status reports, Violette moves through the ruins alone. She travels from town to town, a young woman in a summer suit, carrying a bag that could get her executed on any street corner. She finds nothing but ghosts. The circuit is in irreparable shambles. But where a traditional soldier might see failure, Violette sees opportunity. She gathers intelligence on local factories' gears, grease, and steel destined for the German war machine. She maps the vulnerabilities. She finds the pressure points where an Allied bomb could do the most damage with the least effort. She returns to England, a hero in the eyes of the SOE, promoted to ensign. But there is no time for tea or medals, because the world is about to explode. June 6th, 1944. D-Day. The Allied hammer falls on the beaches of Normandy. The system is finally moving in the open, but the inland resistance is a chaotic mess of competing factions and broken radios. On June 8th, just 2 days after the landings, Violette is back in the belly of a USAAF Liberator. She is part of Salesman 2. Her mission, to drop into the heart of Limoges and organize the Maquis into a weapon that can cut the German throat from behind. While the world watches the beaches, Violette is in the dark again, falling toward a landscape she knows is crawling with the enemy. She assumes a new mask, Madame Violette, a grieving young widow from Nantes. It is a role she doesn't have to act. The process begins when she meets the local Maquis. They are brave, but they are a rabble poorly led, ill-equipped, and drowning in their own adrenaline. Philippe Lever, her commanding officer, is frustrated. He needs order. He needs a liaison who can navigate the egos of the resistance leaders in the Dordogne. He chooses Violette. But as she prepares to move, a much larger machine is grinding its way toward them. The 2nd SS Panzer Division, the Das Reich, is a steel leviathan of 15,000 men and heavy armor. They are moving north, carving a path of fire toward the Normandy front. They are the hammer, and Violette is standing directly in its path. The local resistance leaders scoff at the danger. They believe the back roads belong to them. They treat the German presence as a minor inconvenience, a ghost story told by cowards. But they have fatally underestimated their opponent. The SS doesn't just occupy, they erase. It wasn't a tactical maneuver they were performing. It was a scorched earth cleansing of every village that dared to whisper the word freedom. On the morning of June 10th, the friction between the human spirit and the massive system reaches its breaking point. Lewer gives a direct order. Travel by bicycle, blend in, be invisible. But Jacques Dufour, a young Maquis leader codenamed Anastasie, has a different plan. He has a Citroën. He believes speed is the ultimate defense. He ignores the warnings. He treats the quiet roads of Salon-la-Tour as a sanctuary. It is the fatal flaw. An internal combustion engine in 1944 isn't a vehicle. It's a megaphone in a graveyard. Following D-Day, the German High Command had issued a total prohibition on French civilian cars. To a German soldier, the sound of a French engine was a confession. They didn't need to see your papers. They only needed to hear the pistons. By turning the key, Dufour isn't starting a car. He's starting a timer on their lives. Violette, perhaps exhausted by the weight of her mission, or perhaps trusting the expert on the ground, climbs into the passenger seat. She clutches her Sten gun. The car rumbles through the sun-drenched fields. It feels like a Sunday drive, until they reach the bend outside Salon-la-Tour. The roadblock is sudden. The German troops are on edge, searching for a kidnapped SS officer. When they see the Citroën, the air vanishes from the lungs of everyone in the car. Dufour slows down, and for a heartbeat there is only the idle of the engine and the click of German rifles being readied. One of the passengers, Jean Berriot, leaps from the moving car and vanishes into the brush. But Violette and Dufour are trapped. The gunfight is a symphony of jagged noise. Violette and Dufour scramble out, vaulting a gate and sprinting toward a small stream. The field is open. The sun is too bright. Then, the black box of her own body fails her. She leaps, her weight shifts, and they ankle the same joint she mangled during training snaps. The sprained ligament, never truly healed, gives way like a rotted rope. The input is a single, desperate jump. The output is total immobility. The pain is a white-hot spike driving through her leg. She can't walk. She certainly can't run. Dufour stops, reaching for her. But Violette knows the mathematics of the machine. If he stays, they both die. If he goes, the message might get through. "Go!" she screams. She crawls toward a cornfield, dragging her useless leg behind her. She finds the shade of an apple tree. It's a beautiful spot for a massacre. While the system of the SS closes in with armored reinforcements, Violette is already in the dirt, holding the silence. And then she breaks it. She clears her Sten gun. She checked the magazines. She has 30 minutes of life left, and she intends to spend every second of it. The Germans advance, confident in their numbers. They see a single woman in a summer suit. They expect surrender. They expect tears. Instead, they get the hammer. Violette opens fire. The Sten clatters, its lead biting into the uniforms of the master race. She kills a corporal. She wounds several others. She moves her fire, creating the illusion of a larger force, buying Dufour the minutes he needs to vanish into the woods. The SS soldiers are stunned. Their manual didn't prepare them for this. They bring up more men. They circle her. Violette is calm. Between bursts of fire, she might have whispered those words Leo Marx gave her. "The life that I have is all that I have." She fires until the last magazine clicks empty. She is alone. The corn is shredded. The apple tree is scarred by bullets. The laughter has finally stopped. As the German boots crunch through the dirt toward her, Violette doesn't beg. She stands as best she can on her one good leg, a 23-year-old widow, facing the sunset of her life with a defiance that the massive system will never understand. She is now a guest of the Sicherheitsdienst. The interrogation room is a box of shadows, smelling of damp stone and stale cigarette smoke. For 4 days in Limoges, the SS Security Service tries to unzip her mind. They use the crystallized arrogance of their rank, convinced that a woman, a civilian, will shatter under the weight of their questions. "You are a terrorist," they sneer. "A puppet for London. Tell us the names," and the pain stops. But Violette gives them nothing but a ghost. She tells them her name is Vicky Taylor. She holds her silence like a shield, a quiet defiance that infuriates men used to instant submission. Even when they move her to Frayne prison in Paris, where the interrogation turned to systematic torture, she remains a locked vault. While the system screams for information, Violette is already in the dark, protecting the names of the men and women still fighting in the sun. August 1944. The irony is a bitter poison. As General Patton's tanks roar toward Paris, bringing the promise of liberation, the Germans begin to pack their most valuable human cargo. To the Nazis, Violette is no longer a person. She is a liability to be hidden. She is shackled to a fellow agent, Denise Bloch. They are herded onto a train, an 18-day journey into the heart of the nightmare. Amid the stench of the cattle cars and the fear of Allied strafing runs, Violette's laughter still flickers. She washes her clothes in puddles. She shares her meager rations. She is the ghost that refuses to be haunted. The journey ends at Ravensbrück. It is a machine designed to grind the human spirit into ash. Here, the system attempts its final erasure. Violette is stripped of her name and given a number. She is forced into grueling labor, digging potatoes in the frozen soil of East Prussia. The guards watch with a cold, forensic detachment, waiting for the vivacious sprite to break under the chilling winds and the starvation. They demand she work in a munitions factory, helping to build the very bullets that are killing her countrymen. Violette looks at the foreman and refuses. It is a moment of pure, dangerous agency. In a world of concrete and barbed wire, she finds the one thing they cannot take: her no. The punishment is solitary confinement. A dark cell where the silence is no longer her ally, but her cage. By late January 1945, the Red Army is a distant thunder on the horizon. The end of the war is a mathematical certainty, but the system has one last procedure to follow. The climax is not a grand battle. It is a quiet alleyway in the frost of a February morning. The time freeze begins now. Violette is let out of her cell. Her body is a map of scars and malnutrition, but her eyes are clear. She sees her friends, Denise Bloch and Lillian Rolf. They are so weak they must be carried on stretchers. The air is so cold it hurts to breathe. There is no trial, no final speech, just the mechanical efficiency of the SS. The process is surgical. Violette is ordered to kneel. The input is a command from Commandant Fritz Suren. The black box is the Walther pistol, held by SS Rottenführer Schult. 1 ounce of pressure on a steel trigger. A chemical spark. And a lead projectile travels at 300 meters per second. The output is the end of a world. The bullet strikes the base of her skull, and for a moment, there is only the echo against the camp walls. Then, there is nothing. Violette Szabo is 23 years old. The cruel irony is a weight that history still carries. The Red Army would liberate Ravensbrück just weeks later. If she had stayed in London, if the car hadn't started, if her ankle hadn't snapped, she would have been there to see the flags fly over Paris. Instead, her victory is a bitter one. In 1946, a 4-year-old girl named Tanya stands before King George VI. She is wearing a small coat and a somber expression. She receives the George Cross on behalf of a mother she will only ever know through the stories of others. Violette and Etienne become the most decorated married couple of the war, a title bought with 2 lives and a lifetime of absence. Do we see this same hubris today? The belief that people are just data points in a larger machine? Violette's story is a mirror. It reminds us that when the system is at its most arrogant, the greatest threat is a single human heart that refuses to forget who it loves. If you believe that stories like Violette Szabo's deserve to be remembered, join our ranks by subscribing. We have synthesized this narrative from reputable historical archives and verified sources. However, the fog of war often extends to the history books. If you spot any inaccuracies or have additional details to share, please correct us in the comments. We strive for the absolute truth, and your knowledge helps us get there. Thank you for keeping history alive.